we've become so accustomed to having to defend our position when you tell your own life story, but that's a whiteness thing too. But I realized before I was going to publish a story about something I went through, I felt like, I'm going to have to defend my perspective here. But that is not a natural state.
I mean, if I could go back and change one thing from the year before I became is I would tell myself, like, relax, like, it's going to be okay,
Right.
And like, people told me that, but I couldn't have actually believed it, and I was hung up on this point where I was like, because I am a woman talking about the military and criticizing the military, like any white man in uniform saying that I'm lying is going to carry more weight, right?
But to who?
But
is where we
one
can
of the things
start
I've learned is, like, even while maybe that is true, they have to have a bigger platform than me, because like they can say all they want, but like it, like if you've built your own platform and your people are coming to you and they are reading the book, like.
And I would even challenge to say the platform is just the proof. That's you're seeking the proof to make sure in a way to validate your position, but it was there to begin with. So like for me, I had to get some of that white man mediocre confidence, and not even real confidence, but kind of calling the bluff of them being any kind of anything, right? Like if someone believes them or is listening to someone who is just trying to discredit you, no matter what they look like you have to like overcome the convincing part. I had to. I'm not trying to, but in order to be the white woman whisperer, before that existed, people kind of take it for granted now. I had to go, I have to just know in my heart that, because white women argue with me all the time about that I'm wrong, right? And if you want to go by who's credible there, maybe the white people, but I built the platform, but I built the platform because I knew there are people who are going to listen. There are people who I don't have to convince already. But if we're in the, look, I have this degree, look, I have this thing here, all these proofs, that and like it's a sub thing. It happens after you already know.
Today I had this on my live. Someone was like, well, you're a self-proclaimed expert. And like, okay, so what?
Like, does that bother you?
I'm an expert because I'm online every day giving out expert level information. And it's like, I think what you and I do, how this is like for me, this is kind of like part of the matriarchy, is just being like, no, I think there's value in doing this thing, and I'm going to go like put it out to people. And I don't care about who, so like my book that's coming out, like I spent this book is a 36-page bibliography. Like I did the work, and I don't really care who else is upset by it. Like I don't care if
no one's upset or not saying anything.
Right, exactly, right. It's
you
like
have
I'm putting this out, and that's now part of the conversation, instead of not even putting it out in the first place, because you can't convince the white man that it's good. And OMG, let me tell you. So with the launch of Uncultured, I'm indie publishing, Culting of America, which I'm indie publishing. I have a custom set of knitting needles that look like swords. And it's a whole knitting bundle. I think we talked about it, right?
Yeah.
But like, and I have just sold so many of these. And I just cannot get over, like, if I had said to a traditional publisher, one of these big fives with the boardrooms and the, full of everyone who's done it the industry way, that I wanted custom knitting needles with my book because of my online persona, like, they would not have known what to do with that.
You would have had to convince them of that. Do you know what a waste of energy that is? And then they would congratulate themselves. Like, and this is why I'm like, you can't even think about those. I had to detach that from the book writing. And, the idea of doing book writing with you as like a partner in it, I'm like, that I could do. Because the idea that I would even have to entertain this, and they're thinking they're doing, no, get out of my face. You don't know anything about what I'm doing. You're not supposed to.
Well, and someone was asking about this, someone who like listens to the podcast a lot, and was asking like, and was saying that the hardest part for them to understand was the tenets of white supremacy was the worship of the written word, because they're someone that like really values education and all of this. And we were just kind of talking through it, you know, from my understanding. And I was like, it's not like, we're not saying, like, Rebecca's not saying that like publishing stuff isn't important or that written stuff isn't important. Rebecca talks about books all of the time. It's just that if you're going by publishing as like the only source of what makes something worth being read, right? Or what makes certain stories worth being told.
Or the truth only exists from
or like this doesn't need to exist because it's not as sellable as another thing, you know, like
you start getting into you have to like zoom out and realize what is published and why, and not just say if it's published it must be true and good and valuable.
Like, do you know the Wikipedia thing? So Wikipedia's founder refused to monetize Wikipedia, right? That's why every time you go, you get asked for donations. But he refused to monetize. And by the way, he would be one of the richest billionaires in the world, right? Because Wikipedia is an extremely visited site. But he refused to monetize because he said, once you monetize, there's no way for that content now to be kind of fairly crowdsourced, right? Because there's gonna be more ads on pages about AI than about pages about Queen Victoria, right? And so then it's like, as soon as you attach a payment to that, it's gonna start to affect the actual content, right?
Capitalism compromises consent in a way that I can't not see. Like, once money is involved, it changes things here because of capitalism. Right? Because of the earning a right to live and living for working for a living. I mean, you know, owing your life to. But that comes from, you know, I've been thinking that biblically was the first actually. Like, you're just, and once I was talking on live and kind of like talking with some Christians, like, you know, I'm realizing this real crossover, one, Mormonism, but also just like the purity culture that I didn't experience. And I think there's some validation people are getting from me kind of just like, what? Mary Magdalene washed Jesus' feet. So we were talking more about the washing and the grossness and the hygienics, eugenics, you know, I'm seeing stuff in there, and purity is gross. And honestly, you know, it's there's a lot to wash everything but your legs, you know, brainwashing, mouth washing, all that stuff.
Well, and I think that it is really beneficial for people who grew up under purity culture to hear people be like, no, that's gross. Like, why, like, why was that happening?
And that's what it's like. White people, you have this, you want community, you can have it. You're not talking about your stuff, but that is part of the culture, is don't bring our inside business outside. Like that isolation, that you have a double consciousness in a different way where it's like,
and that's one of the things about cults.
Whatever.
Right? Like, that's one of the things about cults is we don't talk about Bruno, right? Like, we don't talk about this outside. Like, and I tell people all the time in these single family cults, like, one of the ways you can identify that is like, if you had the circle of trust, like, if that meet the satire thing was your real family, like, yeah, that was a little bit culty, you know?
Yeah.
There's nothing that goes on in my house that my kid is not allowed to talk about with her friends or like, teachers or trusted things.
Yeah.
We had to be like, you can't give your door code out, you know, and like get her to understand that, because we're otherwise like so open. Like, why, you know,
the sacred secrets
in cults, the secrets, right? And the weaponization of secrets. I think, like, as soon as you have secrets, it's so easy to
And that's all like
stuff to start going
whiteness
wrong.
ends up being, is like the specialness, the subtext, the what's not being said that you can determine, you know, because I've been also talking about like white people seem to be listening for like the real truth, these extra things. And like, what about what you just heard and who said it? You don't care that Bill Gothard doesn't have a family? I always go back to that. Like, you never zoomed out to be like, why would he know? No, but he wrote books.
You put this
Debbie
line,
Pearl, they wrote books.
I put this line in the musical after the Bill Gothard character comes out, and then I have the chorus chant like, "Doesn't everyone want a childless, unmarried man to teach them about family?"
Right. What do you, come on, ladies. Like, you're not even asking, why would he be here? And what does he have to gain from this? And, you know, you're so busy questioning Black people. How about you do some questioning of your own? And you'll be so supported by other communities because we have no idea. And we're not in competition with you. We're not going to come out and be like, oh, you think your trauma is bad? Slavery. That, I don't know. That's a you thing. That's what you guys do is go, well, you know what? I had this special trauma. You didn't. This like whole, you have no idea. I hear that a lot in white women. You have no idea.
Yeah, I really noticed that in this book that I'm working through that's like for post-traumatic mistress syndrome. Mm-hmm. And it is like, part of it is like white women addressing and naming and acknowledging like the trauma that was done to us through this violent system, like through the participation in this violent system of, you know, enforced white supremacy. And there's none of that, what you're talking about. Like, there's none of the like, oh, what, you want to look at your trauma compared. There's none of this trauma shaming.
Right.
And I think,
how
like,
would that benefit us?
Just in general, like, I think this is one of the signs of a healthy community is like, there's not this trauma shaming, you know? So like, I see this pretty badly in the veteran community, for example, where it's like, oh, you think that was bad? Well, blah, blah, blah. Instead of like, every single one of us should be here helping each other try to get the most disability payments that we are entitled to from the government, 1,000. Not shaming each other out of it because of this culture that we were taught, you know? And
scarcity of something. I don't know what you think, why you think we're
competing. You know, I think my beliefs on this too really go into the way that I have tried to like build community around cult survivorship, which is like, I'm doing this work because I have that extreme story. No one's going to tell me that I don't understand cults, right? That I don't understand the military. And then I can be like, okay, now tell your story. You know, and this was like very interesting. We noticed as we went around the country. You know, I've been saying for a while that I think when other cult scholars are listening to the story, they're listening to see if your experience fits, right? Which is fine. Like, we need the academics that really define the thing very specifically, right? But because I came from one of the most extreme cults in the world, like, I don't feel the need to sit there and define what exactly is a cult. So I can just define cults in micro detail. You know, you do the same thing with white supremacy, just define and untuck all these new folds and all these new nuances. And if you relate, okay, like, let's talk about that more.
I mean, kind of.
And that was kind of the thing that we noticed. We went around the country, you know, as you saw in the event that we did with you, which is like, all these people just want to tell their stories and just want to like be heard and be believed and not have it be like, well, if you didn't go through XYZ, then it wasn't a real cult, right? And just just like,
and it's a way for them to show like, see, I know what you're talking about, and it's not in a it's a way to connect through vulnerability.
Like, if this relates to you, welcome, you know. And this is kind of how I'm building the musical too. And my talent manager's mom, who they are Jewish, and have normal, nice childhood, don't relate to that part of what I do. And so she's like, you know, explain to me like how you're healing people. And my talent manager was like, we believe them.
Right. And that's it. And it's not needing to convince. It's like, so where we started when you're talking about all that, like.
Yeah. And that turns into, by the way, for my business, right? My current indie publisher being like, Daniella's audience will pay any amount of money to support her. And I've not seen this before. Right? Which is like, this is what we're trying to build, you and me, right? Like, this is the matriarchy. That's what I'm saying. It's like just putting the information out there, like building the community, and then that community is going to make sure you're taken care of.
Right. And it builds upon itself. It reverberates each person it touches. And it's not in a colonial spreading. It's in a bloom, a blossom, an un-gaslighting. Someone once told me that I was I'm an un-gaslight. And I was like, that is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. It's years ago they said this to me. And I was like, that's it. Good. I accept the role because that's what I feel like I'm doing to myself every time I hear a phrase. It started with, I was just talking to my friend saying, I don't like this whole throwing the baby out with the bathwater and the draining and the plumbing and the white people. And that turned into a white person going, oh my God, I had to look this up. And it actually comes from this. Gross, right? Them sharing bathwater and going from man to the baby at one bathwater, and then they would throw so now that's a conversation. And I'm learning about people and oh my God, the amount of white people who share bathwater. And like, oh my goodness, it can be that. And there's such an embrace, like I say, embracism of what that means as white people. It's like, yeah, it's gross, but like someone got to own it, right? And like someone's got to start showering and talking about like, we believed this crazy thing. And it's not going to be a bunch of people out here. We already know what you smell like. I already told you that, right? So like I said, there's a white people smell. So you might as well own it. It's the booger thing all over again, right? Like, we're just telling you, wipe your nose. I think it can go from there where you go, oh my gosh, did you know? And then you tell your friend, tissues. Oh my goodness. And then they have a clear nose and you never know what it was. You can't even imagine going back to a clogged nose. I feel like there's something about, when you can't breathe from one nostril or something and you're like, oh, remember when it was so, I'm going to be grateful for that. And then you're not. There's something about whiteness in there where you're just like, other people are born with, I don't know. I'm not sure, but there's an analogy in there somewhere. But the worship of the written word, I understand the confusion, but it's like, you have to let go of the all or nothing, even of that. It's also not existence of worship. Existence of the written word. It's worship of it. It's taking a text or any kind of white man paperwork, dollars, receipts, diplomas, these certificates. That doctor is still just Steve. He's not like anything else. That rich guy, he's a guy. All those, all the paperwork isn't going to change it. That book that says all these weird, complex things about how the right person does the right thing, that's just a book about nonsense, guys. Stop it. Stop using it to harm children. Like, it's a book. Biblically, shut up. I don't mean to be that. But as someone who didn't grow up with the book, you start saying terrible things and then go, well, the Bible says.
I know.
What? To me, that's worship of the written word. That's where it starts, I would say. Or even the Constitution. People, I understand. But like some white man wrote rules on a piece of paper.
Have you ever seen that episode of West Wing where he's like, oh, the Bible says, and this is like a political show. So this is like the president, an imaginary president. He's like, oh, the Bible says. And he's like, okay, I have a question for you. He says, I would like to sell my daughter in slavery. She has blah, blah, blah. She has this, that, and the other. Like, what's a good price for her? And the woman doesn't know what to say. So I have another question for you. My brother grows his crops standing next to each other in a field, whatever, how should I stone him to death? Do I have to do it personally or just, and it's this really famously replayed scene of like, I always say, like, you can use the Bible to justify any crime that we have defined in modern society. Like, you can find the Bible justifying it, God ordering someone to do it. Like,
so many books, please. But then there's apparently, so I learned about when I was going live, I learned about there's this like long series of the last dang, I don't remember what they're called, but all these kids are forced to read these rapture books. And there's like 16 of them. And they're like, what's the order of this? And it's just so much scariness you guys are given with the Satan and the stuff to tell you how to human. If you don't do this, then everyone's going to be murdering each other. And I think undoing some of that and starting to believe in freedom, right, of your own thoughts. And like, what would happen if there weren't police? I'm scared of the police. Like, that would be amazing. It's almost like, what if men weren't outside? You know? There's just like allowing yourself to not think everyone's so terrible and scary, because who told you that? Have you experienced that?
Yeah.
Well, if you've mostly been around white people, maybe you have. Honestly, it's a different, y'all are doing different, lots of stuff in your houses. And I was thinking about the bathwater thing and Sydney Sweeney. I was like, there's some connection there, because she sold a soap that contained some of her bathwater in it.
That's creepy.
And people bought it. And I don't know if it's true that I heard there was a hole in the soap, like, for things. And I'm like, well, that's gross. And then the genes, I was like, white people want to keep recessive genes and germs, and you just like love hoarding germs and growths. And I don't know. There's just a lot to unpack that only white people can do for themselves. And you'll realize like there's so much room for community in that. But I do think you guys are prepared for some kind of trauma shaming. Like, or it's not even, it's like you're shamed for sharing the trauma. You're shamed for thinking it impacts something. You're a victim of like derogatory. I'm not sure.
Like, maybe this is an autism thing. Like, maybe this is a whiteness thing. But like, people expecting you to be ashamed because you were traumatized. You know, like acting like me. You know, I got a whole lot of this when I started talking about my story, about my background, and then people acting like, I don't know, it felt like a purity thing. Like, now you're less pure, and like now we look at you differently as an officer, and like blah blah blah, and this kind of like,
because they know something.
Yes,
not because it happened, because that's the thing, people, they don't zoom out enough to realize you're just hearing about it.
No, those people, you know, so I started getting to this point where I started being like, okay, so I grew up in a cult, right? And then people would tell other people, and they would come, they'd be like, hey, can I know the story? And so I'd be like, okay, go read this Wikipedia page. Like, that's what I was born and raised in. Come back with questions, right? Because then their questions like tell you so much. So when it got to the, like, definitely several people would just stand there, right? Pull up their phone and like read it in front of me. And then they'd be like, oh my gosh, are you okay? And I would just be like, I mean, whether I am or not, that's beside the point of like, I'm the same person that I just was 2 minutes ago. Like,
so
you
weird.
Finding out about this did not change, right? Like,
okay. White people.
And just, you know, I also kind of had this experience when I moved into a new neighborhood, and like we live in Maryland, so it's definitely less white than before, but in being like, I have a memoir coming out, like I have a big, basically trauma memoir coming out. And so I'm going to just talk about my stuff openly when I meet new people, because like this is happening. It was like shocking to people, you know, white people, I should definitely say. And just kind of the like, oh wow, that's a lot to find out about you, like. And it's like, I mean, I get it, but
so be the autism in me, right? Because I never, like, to me, but we're still here though. So I'm, you know, the acronym I've been using for some of that to like help people heal from some of this want is, what about now though? Like, we're here today now. So if you told me, like, I've never really asked you about that, it'll come up. We're talking here now today about things, you know? It doesn't make sense. There's something about the binaries of like backstories that white people use, right? Like you have a sad, what is your backstory? Is it good? Is it bad? That's what tells us whether we believe you now. And did you come from a hard life? Was it easy? Was it not easy? Like, who cares?
This was my boss, by the way, who literally says to me, he's like, Daniella, I thought before we knew about your background, I thought you were really weird. But now, like,
what did you do with that? Like, what do you do with that?
There's nothing to do with that. Just like, yeah.
It's so inconsiderate of the receiver of that information. It's like, white people just throw things out at you, and then you go, okay. Just like, oh, you sound taller than you are. I never know what to say after that. You're just making observations about me out loud. You could have done that in your head. Like, you could have done that in your head. That's the other thing. Those feelings, all your feelings are valid all the time, sure. But the speaky part, you could have not. You could have just said nothing. Now that I used to think you were so weird, and now I think you're weird for not being weird. Now I don't know how you're a normal person. That's compliment. That's a compliment. Say thank you now.
Then I would immediately start getting, oh, you don't seem like a comfortable from people. And then it was just like, it's another thing where you're like, what do I do with that? Like, what, like, and I started just joking that I should ask people, like, how many do you know? You know, and yeah. Which of course I then found to parallel with people telling me that I don't look like a veteran. Basically every single time I bring up that I am a veteran, I will get told I don't look like a veteran. And I'm like, but what?
See, this is something.
I know there's a lot of parallels here.
Yeah. But like, I don't get a lot of that because I'm just like not around those types of people, but it makes so much sense because I know exactly who would say these things. But it's also like, how are y'all letting people get away with this? This is where white women could also start, this is I don't know, something. When I realized I could say, no, thank you. Once I came up with that as my go-to tool where if I go out in public and someone's asking me a question, I'm like, wait, no, thank you. And I think that'll work, right? I feel it gives them something to put it back on them, that discomfort. When
I feel like I teach my white mom friends this a lot when they're shopping and they ask for your email. You can just be like, no, thanks. And they'll just move on. You don't have to give them your email or make up an email. You can.
Do they not? I'm sorry. Hold on.
No, I think people need. I don't
orange pants. This is reminding me of. I can't. Oh my god! I would love to be able to wear colors. What? You
wear them.
And it's also so, you know how zoomed in that is as a white woman, that you think that person like really wants your email address. They want you to say no. They don't want to do more work. Maybe they get a commission. I don't think they do. Like, no, it's also this assumption that like they want this from me.
But this is also the being nice thing.
Right.
Because that was yeah.
No, neither of us want this. That's why I think maybe why I was so confused. Because I'm like, what? Who are you doing this? This is what I call self-imposed suffering. And you're doing it and it's leaking out onto us. The service worker who is supposed, you're not realizing we're working. There's something about white women and believing that someone who's getting paid to be nice to you wants to. They don't. And that doesn't mean they hate you either. That just means they wouldn't be here if they didn't have to be. This is why I say capitalism compromises consent. Is it also confuses you. And maybe that's what white men are so confused about the flirting, because Mormons are taught to flirt, but also hate. There's a lot going on there. White people. I'm saying this as white people because the purity of impurity, like in order to be pure, you have to know all the things not to be impure about. So they like tell you all about sex, but in a way that it's bad.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's anti-blackness, where whiteness is a lack of black. Right? It's just like, not black, which is so
that's
bad.
Like one of the things I've been trying to teach my audience. I'm like, pedophilia culture, which we can all agree that I grew up in, is this other side of the coin of purity culture. And you know how you can't pull two sides of a coin apart? Talking to kids about detailed sex and telling them it's good and talking to kids about detailed sex and telling them it's bad are the same thing. Stop talking to children about detailed adult sex. And let them develop naturally and appropriately and respond to questions. Like, that's all you have to do.
It's like this coin of deniability that I feel like they toss out to just say biblically, and then like no matter what, it comes out whichever side, heads and tails, they both lead to let's talk to these kids about sex, no matter what. It's two sides of a purity coin. That coin is disgusting. It's okay. I'm not gonna detail where that coin has been, but I'm gonna tell you this: they're not washing the coins. Money to so many degrees is dirty. Like, it's gross. It's gross. It makes you do gross things, and whether it's money or it's the perceived money or that status, the stats, whatever, it goes down the down line of ways you can reasons to people, I guess, just because I got something. The book says sometimes it's okay because those aren't real. The book that nobody, it's so complex and it's got so many weird words that nobody uses. Must be good.
Yeah.
Must be super smart.
Well, and this is why I was just talking about this week, because I was talking with the Texas politician. So Texas has just passed a law that the 10 Commandments has to be displayed in every classroom. Yes. So first of all, by the way, everybody listening, this is a good example of can pass law but cannot enforce, right? Like, there's no way for them to enforce that. So if individual teachers don't do it and individual schools don't push back, like, that's part of resistance. But and of course, the 10 Commandments has to be from the King James Version, right? And this is a English-speaking cult thing, right? In almost every English-speaking like cult that I know, Christian cult that I know of, they're using the King James Version. This is because, in my opinion, it is written in archaic English, right? Which makes it harder for the average person to understand. So just like when the Bible was in Latin and the priests had the monopoly on interpreting the Bible, this gives them a perceived, like, well, I studied it, like, I know, right? When you read a verse and you're like, that means nothing to you. And, think about if you've ever been to a poetry reading and then someone explains like, oh, I see it this. Now you're like, yeah, okay. So that subtext and that's where they go. But what I love to do whenever I bring up the King James Bible is to remind people that King James authorized the King James Version of the Bible to get the church off of his back because he was being so queer and gay in public and the church was getting snippy. So I just like to throw that out at all the
remember it was a guy,
just like,
it was
stop.
A guy.
Yeah, just stop. Like the literal Bible that you're worshiping was written down by this guy that was doing whatever he wanted as
like all those books, like the books, and I think it's just bringing them down. Like, I had to almost do the same with worship of the written word, where I was putting much on the idea of a book, where I was like, I don't do I want to, and not realizing a book can just be the structure of a book and not the systematized, like, now my work has meaning because it is sellable, because that's not what a book is. A book is just a book.
I think it's the difference. Hey,
got a lot to say today.
He's such a grumpy Republican. I think he knows his guys
are up in arms.
Yeah, I think he knows. But like, I've been through this journey of literally being like, when I decided, because part of my journey was getting out of the army and being like, okay, I'm good at being an expert, right? Like, the army picked a topic that I was going to be an expert in and trained me, and then I was a good expert. So what am I going to be an expert in next? So then I picked culture, right? And I was like, I'm going to be the Brene Brown of culture. Like, and I want to get paid to talk about and teach about culture at the national and international level, right? And I was like, so how can I make myself an expert, right? Like, how do I make myself a trusted expert? And I was like, well, I think I can do three things. I can get a PhD, I can write a book, or I can start my own consulting company. And I started all 3. And like, when I tell you, like, the amount of credibility people look at you when you tell them you're the CEO of a company, when it's just like, you didn't see my numbers, you don't know anything. Like, I just, like, that was so funny to me.
When you're white.
Yes, you're right.
I think it would give me a little, but they'd be like, of what? You know, there'd be more questions.
Yes, more scrutiny for sure.
Yeah.
But like, so as someone who in part set out to write a book in order to establish my credibility, and then wrote something I think very different, you know, like wrote a story, and now on this side, I've done a research book, right? We've got Culting of America pre-sales, y'all, linked in the bio. And it's like, but I think for me, like, thanks so much to the social media involvement in like building this entire brand. Like, I know I'm an expert because I know how much I know. And my books are just presents. My books are just packages of my expertise that I can now easily disseminate to people.
Right.
But it's
make it
not
easier for people
like, you know, like, I mean, in theory, I'm writing an indie book. Like, that's less impressive than a big Macmillan book, which I did the first time. And like, I couldn't care less, right? Like, this is for me to package my ideas, to get them out there. And honestly, part of why I'm so excited is because I've already built the audience and stress tested these ideas. And I, you know, added
and
more
sharing them.
Yeah, it was kind of cool reading our like author's note as it came together, you know, the one that you suggested about like talking up front about the limitations of perspective, and it's all that. And it's like, and so because of that, we did this, right? Like, we brought Rebecca in. Because of that, I have tested myself.
That's beyond expert. That's like
increasing audience. Yeah.
It's a sharing of it's a sharing of like a personal experience with a subject that can grow. It implies like future and past. Well, that Daniella's gonna tend to that Republican dog. I can't just.
I'm so sorry.
No, blame the Republicans. You know,
you have to be here. You have to be here. But yeah, and I would just say the number one thing about people, like people's bad reactions to me has just been like, the more I'm like, no, this is my topic. I know it. And I'm going to be here putting out information, and like,
it's almost a litmus test for if they're ready for it. You know, it's not.
Yeah. And especially holding to this, like, if you like this information, cool. And if you don't like it, like, go.
That's also information for you. Yeah. Like, that's not information for me. You're not supposed to be for everyone. You're not a consumable good. Like, you are yourself. And I think that's what typically the whole, you know, that your credibility would come from the book versus you having an experience you want to share and the book is good and people want to hear more from you, right? Because I remember thinking, okay, I'm talking to these white women at work about their whiteness and stuff, and I really feel like I'm impactful when I do that with them based on their reactions and all this stuff, and I hate it here. And then I go through my whole little breakdown realizing like, but my actual job, and they hate me, and like these white men are whatever. And just realizing there's something here. I don't know what it is, but also realizing TikTok as this place where I'm seeing these women marching in the streets with the hats, and they're talking about wanting to learn in Black squares on Instagram and stuff. And I believe it, which some were real, some were not. Obviously, some people did want to listen, but whatever. And I just thought, how can I get to these women so that they can be less harmful, but also make money? And that was like a growing part of the capitalism of that all was difficult. But TikTok existing, I knew like I could do this. I know where the algorithm just sends it to the people who want to hear it. And as long as I'm saying stuff and it makes sense, then just call myself it.
You know, this is something I've been thinking a lot about with my own audience, because I'm like, there are, I don't think, somewhere 90 million white millennials, mostly white millennials, who lost their parents to religious extremism. in like Mormon flavor, Catholic flavor, or evangelical flavor. And of that 90 million, like many of us have left that extremism. Some of us have deconstructed, and then some of us have not. And those are the people voting for this, right?
Yeah.
And understanding that difference, I think, is really, really crucial. Because like we are at this place where people are like, how can Americans possibly be voting for this? Because they were raised under total authoritarianism. That is something that is very much a parallel to Germany in the 1930s, and why these Germans voted for Hitler after being raised in very, very authoritarian ways. Right.
And it's like
so
connecting with those people and not
while you have all of these people in your audience who have left the cult of white supremacy and who are trying to deconstruct. I mean, when I heard your name, I was like, I need that. And I know millions of other white women that are going to need that. Right. So there are out there, but there are also all of the siblings who haven't left the cult yet and who are then voting for the bad stuff.
Right? They left one cult, but they can hop into another one. Just because they've deconstructed that element doesn't mean they see themselves as just as human as literally every other person. And, you know, I know there's people, especially like Black people, like we're leaving the cult of corporate America or believing in corporate America. Like that's a place. The fact that I said and felt like I'm leaving this thing, and that we go into corporate America. Where is this place? I remember you saying on a video somewhere, like, if you have to say I grew up in, and it's not a place or something, that's pretty culty. But the fact that I definitely felt like if I leave this job, I'm leaving so much. And I won't be able to get another one, and it's because it's corporate America. Once you enter it, how do you enter it and then exit and all that? And there's a lot of cultiness there, but the capitalism of, or believing in merit and that we can achieve our way to respectability politics. Black people talk about respectability politics. As long as you just do game the system, play the game, whatever it is, then I don't know when the fun comes, but when you get off work, you know, you just go in, do your job, leave, but you can't do that.
And then, and this brings me to a fun question that I wanted to ask you. So I'm glad we're getting here. So when you do play the game, when you get to the top, so now I'm going to ask you, what if white women's emotional support billionaire, Taylor Swift, came to you and was like, what do I do? Right?
Yeah.
She's played the game. She's at the top. She seems to be trying to turn it on them, right? Like not showing your body until you're 35. She's trying to do, she's always been trying to challenge things from a white women's perspective.
Yeah.
Right? But
I could say it's performative, but
if she was like, Rebecca,
if she came to me,
help me, what do I do?
Honestly, my first thought when you said that was I would tell her to tell white women to subscribe to my Patreon.
I love that.
Because, and not
tell white women about Black women.
Right. And not in a, you know what, because it would say she's not going to save us. Right. It's everyone, white women humbling themselves enough to see that, oh, maybe they have to like do a thing that isn't sexy and whatever. And, you know, cause like, it's more like, a white woman whisper. What is that? And that separates. I want to separate as much as people, you're sowing division. Like you said, there are white women that want to deconstruct, that hear my name and go, yes, I want this, right? I want to make sure I am not harming people. And there are people who want to harm me for doing that. That is important to me. And I want white women to realize they need to see that you look just like them until the end, until you step out and say, I follow white women. And I hate that I am the litmus test, but I don't see it, right? Just like you don't see white women talking about whiteness. I'm the one doing it for you. I'm leading the way you can, you know, speak to your credibility as someone in a cult and in, you know, the army. You can speak. I am Black, right? But I know white women. I have a white mom. So, I'm thinking these are my credibility sources of I have good intentions for you. I know what I'm talking about, at least in the fact of I'm trying to help. I'm not selling you anything. I literally don't, because the second I start, even when I do this, people are calling me grifter, and you don't hear me selling my Patreon, and white women could. I can't. They are terrible to me for one, doing this at all, then expecting to be paid, and then when white women do it, they feel there's a whatever. There's some like arduousness about what's a Patreon, and I can't. It takes a little bit of stepping off the pedestal of here's your list of things. Because if I had Taylor Swift, she don't know. I don't know where she stands. If I told her subscribe to my Patreon and she goes, then you're not doing. That's if you can't do that. I didn't even mention it's free. But if you think it's paid, it shouldn't have to be, right? But it's like it doesn't give them the sexy, you like stand outside this guy's house with a megaphone and be a creep to a man. Like, give it back to him, retribution. It would be slow down. Sit down and refer people to a Black woman and see what they do. It might take them some time. It takes women a lot of time. Sometimes I see videos of people going, I followed her. I unfollowed because I guess I wasn't ready yet or something. I just felt like, but eventually I came back and now I listen to her. To me, that's always like, what do you mean? I'm so nice. But then again, I hear otherwise and I get it. I've seen myself and I'm like, oh, but I come from a family of, I don't know, not sweet sugar, nice and smiley.
And I also think this could be the neurodivergent thing of like, what do you mean? I'm just giving you all this information and you're mad at me?
I'm sharing my special interest with you and now I should die? Like, it just sucks. I was like trying to explain to my mom, because, she wanted me to go to this place. I'm trying to explain to her, like, no, I can't really help it but talk about whiteness. And it's not that it's like, oh, so terrible for me. It's like my special interest. My cousin grew up obsessed with trains and Thomas the Tank Engine. But for a Black woman, we don't get to be interested in stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's all about how do we mask and getting really good at my makeup and like figuring out my hair. These things where I like talking about white people and white stuff. And I don't know how to stop sometimes because everything's connected to it, but it is very dangerous for me. So I get anxiety about going out in public. And if someone talks to me, I don't know. Even Christina said, she reminded me when we went to my other friend, I don't have that many, other friend's wedding. We were at a table full of these, she was like, it was a table full of white people. I don't remember it that way, but it was. And I was just talking about white people. She was like, I didn't know, she didn't work with me then. So she was just not as prepared for me to go full on. But it was a bunch of people from T-Neck and they were fine. And I guess I got that vibe from them, or I didn't. I don't know. They kept smiling at me.
I mean, even this strikes me as a difference, right? Because like I am getting recognized now when I go out, and like it gives me anxiety, social anxiety, and I'm not sure how to react, and then I don't know what to say. But I've never once worried about my safety.
Right.
And I've had probably every kind of person come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, I love your, I have not had to worry about my safety in any sort of way, the way that you obviously do.
Right. And so I want white women also to like really hear that you have, that's power, right? That's not just like a Black trauma. That's just a circumstance, right? I have known this since I started talking about it, that I need to be mindful of how loud I am, where I am. But you also hear me talk about this, right? Like you hear how I get excited and I'm like, it doesn't feel harmful to me. My body doesn't recognize this as something not to do. And then I'm going outside and I'm with my friends. And now Christina works with me, so I want to talk about it.
People are like, ugh, all you want to do is talk about cults. I'm like, yes. I know a lot about them. They're very interesting. And
it's and I was thinking about how my cousin with trains, it's like, you find also that if you're just so obsessed with trains, then you are seeing them a lot.
And you know a lot about
them. Right. And if someone goes, oh, I was in Denver, and you'd be like, oh, when I was in Denver, I took this train over there. And you bring it up. because it's connected in your mind. But for me, there is, racism still exists, and I do feel better being in Jersey, where I am, but it's like, you still don't know. And I'm not good at masking in that way. I didn't grow the code switching in that way. And that's why I didn't last in corporate America. Because I thought, like I said, I was doing all this with the white women on the off hours, and they liked it. But the white guys were like, this doesn't make me feel good or comfortable or whatever. You're starting to get to. I was also getting kind of like, ooh, I feel good about myself. That's probably had something to do with it. But also the sign that said, please don't touch my hair on my desk. I don't know how. I wonder when they took that down.
And this also like informs the way you build your business, because it's like you almost build barriers in to people finding you so that you're finding the women who are ready to do the work already, right. Which is different than like, just I almost think of it as like, I don't know, you go to St. Louis because you want to go to some jazz clubs, but you probably are not going to know about the best places to go until you've like been on the scene for a while and done the work. And like, I don't know if that's a good analogy.
And so then the people there kind of, you look at each other and you're like, okay, not in a exclusive is better, but a like,
but in a like, that's probably the best club, but like, my big club up on the Strip that takes in first timers and gives a jazz band lesson right up front, like it's going to get more business.
Right. And that's fine. Like that's all good, but it's seeing that and going, okay, let's work together.
And then I was going to say, and I think that's part of the partnership is like, I can find, because I had this question about the book White Fragility, because I was like, that was one of the first things that I picked up and read. And like, for me, it was like, oh, okay, this is an introduction to a topic that goes a lot deeper. Let's get to work. And I think even from doing this podcast with you, like I see where like these, like people will come ask me things. And it's like, okay, they feel comfortable talking to me because I'm a white woman and we're still getting through this. But then passing them on.
Yeah. And it's just like bringing them into the store,
I still feel like that is in, I always say like there's stages for people when they get out of the cult. And if you're the one that's like immediately on the outside, you have to like still be in the cult a little bit and still be able to like speak that language and not spook them and like like meet them where they're at. And like I can't really do that with a lot of cult survivors, but I feel like I can do that with white women,
No, where you are, where do you sit? And when I had made that bear apocalypse, and I said, I want everyone to know their proper placement. And that seemed to really bother some white women when I said, a proper placement, what does that mean? I mean, know where you stand so you can know who you can help. Like, I don't want to be, and I had to kind of grieve the goal of wanting to be on the Strip, right? Of wanting to be like, I should be able to be on the Strip. I should be able to be as accessible and sell what I sell and, be on TikTok all the time and have positive interactions. But that's not what's best for me. In reality, it's dangerous out there. There's still people in the cult and it's very distraction heavy and there's people throwing stuff. So I'd rather be underground. And it keeps me safer from, the really scary people who get fair game from Scientology, right? Like, I don't want that. I kind of like informing the influential white women. I could see myself being like especially creators, white women who speak publicly about the things they care about. Just check in. I could, make sure, I don't like the term blind spots because I think there's something else there because I don't know if that's ableist, but like where there are opportunities and what aren't you seeing that I can see with the color. And because you're not going to see what I'm going to see, right? But I also, and so similarly, I'm not going to be able to sell the way you can sell.
And I also think it's like, like we're talking about deconstructing white supremacy here or anti-racism or whatever, like white women should be the graduate students, not the professors. Like I have been studying this hard for 5 years now. You've been studying it hard for how long? your whole life, right? Right. Like you have your whole life of experience to pull on. And so it's like, I think about it as like graduate school, right? Like a brand new graduate student can teach whatever 101.
I like that.
You know, like white women can be here teaching the huge classes of, hey, welcome to learning about whiteness. You know, I can teach Deconstructing Whiteness 101, and then that frees you up, and I pass along the promising students, kind of model.
And I always thought of it as like kind of like a convention center. I used to say, like, before I lead you to so many Black creators and like Black topics and people who go into depth on things. I'm like, I know a little about a lot, but I'm also like, I want to give the opening day, like, everybody be quiet though. Like, not realizing before you go into these rooms that I'm going to tell you about, you got to know that your people tend to do this. So I need you to watch out for this, watch out for these feelings, mostly shush and shush. And you be the security guards of your own people. Some people come late. They don't know these rules. You are responsible. I'm asking you to be responsible for making sure they don't distract the professors. Like, they aren't taking up all that time. That you tell each other, hey, let's not raise our hands and just make comments on we agree. Let's not do that because we all want to learn. But it has to be like said beforehand. And I didn't realize that so much of that because of I feel like it's Christian. Like, it's very Christian. It feels like this like colonial way of conversing, and like, no, I'm actively listening by telling you that I'm actively listening and that I agree with you and that here's my related experience. Related experiences are not for while the person is talking to you, like in a lecture with everybody there on the internet. But you can write in, a letter after the class and be like, I really love this. And, there's time continues. It's not the sense of urgency. But, because I feel like I thought I was the intro because I'm bridging the gap, helping to bridge the gap. But it's not just me. We need help. You're like on the other side of the bridge too.
It's also like, how you said, like, you getting to other influencers. It's like, well, my primary job isn't deconstructing whiteness. It is deconstructing cults. And that's what I'm doing my like PhD in. In the meantime, because I am deconstructing whiteness for myself, and like I can teach 101 as the grad student, and like
the
and
common pitfalls
and inevitably gets pulled over into, like, obviously I talk about you a lot in my actual job of deconstructing cults and like the things I learned from you and pointing people back there because it's learning, and so you can have 500 white creators who are all on the left, who are all supposedly working on this stuff, who are stopping the crazy and being the bouncers and then directing the ones who do want to learn to further, Yeah.
And I think focusing on that, seeing the value in that, and every person you get over there is a wealth of, who knows, human resource, right? Not human resources, but like they are a full human, and realizing, because you're just one, I'm just one, we just happen to find each other. And because I just thought, let's try this. And you thought, let's go on here. You just lead. And it's more organic that way, I found. And I would want to find my, if I could just be like, okay, the people will find me through the work I've already done. Now I can kind of focus on, what do I want to say? What do I want you to stick with? What are the sayings and the things versus, this is why you should be listening to me. This is why, please come over here, and like promoting and marketing and stuff like that, which I do. But who knows who's coming in? Who am I getting? I don't know if I just want people off the street to be like, I'm interested, and they just start talking right away. It's actually better for me time-wise and energy-wise,
right,
to have them even have a slow entry.
And even even with marketing and sales, like, I'm going to have an easier time than you are. I'm going to have more energy to put in it because I'm getting less stuff back because of the power dynamics, And so that's how I see it. And it's things like, us having a partnership. Now you have a chapter in the book at the end that's like, hey, now go there. And so now all the time that I'm spending out here marketing and selling the new book, like it's also pointing people to you, and in ways that you don't have to do that beginning marketing and selling.
Right. Or convincing that it's worthy because you are it's like a testimonial or whatever. I don't know if that's that sounds churchy, but like.
Well, and also I think especially how like, because of your help in developing the book, like up front, we're like, hey, this is going to be about whiteness. Like, we're going to talk about whiteness, right? Like, this is going to come up, blah, blah, blah. We're setting the tone. Like, by the time somebody gets to chapter 11 and reads Rebecca's part and is like, oh, damn, right? Like, they've faced some hurdles, right? Like, they've taken the graduate class and they can bounce up a little bit.
They're going to be more comfortable. They get more chance to like sit in the discomfort of like, oh, this is a conversation I'm not used to hearing, but it makes sense. Yeah. And I think for me, it's always, that's the credibility is, does it make sense? When I make up a word that I'm pretty sure I brought up, I had heard you say intensity addiction once, and I was like, oh my God, yes, intensity addiction, right? And then I don't know if I made it up or not, but achievement addiction. It makes a lot of sense for me, right? And one of my mutuals, another white woman who does a lot of good work of like pointing people to me, as she does she deconstructs like the patriarchy a lot. She's in France, Mel Hamlet. She's in France, but she's from America, from the South. And like one of the first people who was just like, oh my God, you opened my eyes. So she just talks about her own experiences, but talks about me because she's on my Patreon. So, but she was talking about one of a white woman and how, you know, she's climbing a mountain and we're just so next, you know, achievement addiction. She's got a kid that's supposed to give you this fulfilling feeling, but now that someone died trying to save her, and just the destruction of this. And I said, achievement addiction is just as deadly as any other. And she said, I'd never heard of that, but it, you know, encompasses it so well. And I'm just thinking, exactly. If it makes sense, if I said white woman whisper and you knew exactly what I was going to do and I came through and said it, I didn't need a paper to say, all right, you're certified.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that was like the un-gaslighting term, right? And also when you say undoctrinate, it's like, I know exactly what you mean with both of these things.
And it's like English is the opposite of that complexity that we add in, that make everything acronyms so people can't understand what we're talking about. And that makes it more fancy, better. No, I'm going to call BS on that and just start making up my own words and people will know exactly what they are. Indoctrinate, edutainment.
Oh my gosh. And I just realized I kind of did this with my definition of cult, but also to answer the good question, right? So first of all, I only know of 2 cult experts that say you can have good cults, and they're both white men. Okay. And it's everyone just gets, well, what defines a cult, right? Like, well, Merriam-Webster says a dictionary by a white man. I know their grandson, trust me, not that impressive.
That is worship of the written word.
Right? And it's like, by all of these ways, everything have been defined. And I'm like, hey,
biblically,
hold the phone. Before we define it, right? When we use a word, we're doing it for a reason. So when we use the word cult, we know we are not trying to say that good, cool thing that my friend got involved in and made her life better. Like, right. We're trying to say someone has come under coercive control.
But and we know that, and then we know that that's bad,
right? So it's just like, I think there is so much of this undoctrinating to do, and like people being like, it's not a cult because you're free to leave. Where does it say? Show me a definition.
But that's another coercive control.
I love to kind of throw it in their face, right? Like, the white men who defined cults have all agreed that the Children of God is a cult.
Yeah,
and they let you leave at any time.
Yeah,
show me. Like, are you willing to say that one's not a cult? Or are you willing to question your definition?
And I think that's such a key in getting people to move past the discomfort, is to take something that they already accept as whatever the thing you're talking about. So if you're trying to, if they already accept it. So like if this woman, women believe in sexism. So when I took sexism and made it racism and said, you are that, then it was like they really didn't like it or they really got it.
Right.
It really hit them or they really didn't like it. So it's like taking the acceptable, like Scientology, well, we always refer to, we accept that's a cult, and then comparing it to America, because what's different?
Yeah. And like, that's what I try to do with my books and my channel. Like, that really sums it up. It's like, I have the extreme story, right? Like, everyone agrees that the Children of God is a cult. Everyone agrees that the women who serve the country don't deserve to be while they're at war. And then we zoom out and we go, well, maybe no women, right? And maybe, and what I'm going to try to do when I work on Un-American is that again, right? Like, if you just say to, like, all white women need to just deconstruct their racism more than they think they do, like, people are going to come with stones, right? But being like, hey, I was raised in a white supremacist cult that literally taught us an 18th century definition of slavery, that Black people were the sons of Ham, that were cursed for blah, blah, blah. And then even after I left the cult, I went on to marry and divorce, but later find out that this man was a white supremacist, a famous one, William Jeffrey Poole. You can Google him, right? I'm writing this book to deconstruct that. And then in that is all the parts that all of the white women are going to recognize.
It's a human experience.
Like I always say in Uncultured, like, I don't need the ex-Mormons to have realized that it was a cult that they grew up in when they pick up Uncultured. They're gonna realize that as they relate to every part of the experience. And so that's like what I think sometimes is like my value, is that I have, you know, I say like all white people were cultured under white supremacy in the United States. Like, that is kind of the ultimate claim at the end of Un-American, was like, American white supremacy is indoctrinating you from the second you set foot in America. I just happened to already be 14 years old the first time my white ass set foot in America, and almost 16 when I came to live here. So I was like,
your identity wasn't based in it.
You know, it was much. Again, it was like, nobody had to give me a definition, right? I didn't hear white privilege defined, written down, named as a concept until 2014. But the first time I heard it, I knew I had lived it, right? Because like, it's there, it's real, it's tangible. And like, that's where I think my job is to then like take these extreme experiences, but write it in that like white women detail that all of these other white women that don't think they grew up in a cult, but then you just are reading the book and they're going, oh crap, like these are all the things, right? And
it's a gentler, it's like, we're in this together. It's not pointing, it's not defining. That's why I said I don't know about defining being valuable, because then what? You did a lot of defining, and like, you're also wrong. Like, defining doesn't prescribe you. You say what it means by the language. But absolutely, and that's why I reached out to you to have this, right? Like, I have the forethought and awareness of all of this, right? But I don't know exactly what does it work in my head. It makes so much sense. This could be just such a great thing in terms of building, but I don't know. Well, who knows what's going to come of it, that you'd write this book and ask. But it's like, seeing it come to fruition is also emboldening. It builds resilience. Also to be like, okay, I've experienced this feeling before, but this is sustainable. There is more. There's places that you can point to, like, okay, this is my privilege, let me use it.
Yes. So this is the one thing I've been really learning, right? So like, first of all, I went to the Veterans Center in DC, like said to a cop that I have more military experience in one of my ovaries than he has in his entire body, did not get arrested, you know, like putting, you know, like, I think right now for white women, like throwing some whiteness around in pushing back. You know, and someone actually brought this up in one of my comments, that like, maybe that's the reparations that the white women can do right now, is literally stand up and push back and be an asshole with authority.
I've been saying Karen for good. The Karen energy, you have it.
Like, if you're a teacher in Texas, like, risk your job to not put the 10 Commandments in there, you know, like, if you're, and I'm not picking on teachers, right? But that, like, there are
but you are a person with the ability to make a choice.
Yes. And unless also like, there are things that we can all do to push back, you know, so like going along with this kind of like graduate school professor analogy, right? Like in these really big colleges, like you don't get to talk to the professor, right? Like when you're in a 300 person class, like you don't get to talk to the professor, you're talking to the graduate students. And we can be that. And I'm starting to figure out what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
Like, trust me, I just wanted to be dark historian gal knitting in my house for the rest of my life. But apparently we're going to have a revolution and also take down white supremacy.
Listen, I thought I was going to work at a pharmaceutical company and just be chilling. I was like, oh, I made it. I got the job. I made it. And then the world was like, hold my beer.
Hold my beer. I know.
That's what racism is actually. It's happening. It's happening right now.
And then people go straight to despair. And I'm like, no, you can be pissed that the world didn't work out the way that you wanted. But then come
Grieve
fight,
the goals,
you know?
And then what about now though? You know, I was like, what? It's upsetting. It's just, but what about, you know, what else? What can we do then? Now that you realize, but you're also not beholden to it. Like you lose a lot, but you gain so much. Like,
yeah.
Oh,
and you know, there's this other thing I'm thinking of for the white women who are like doing the work and want to be the graduate students, and it's like modeling that this doesn't actually cost you that much. Like modeling, it doesn't have to
look like hard work. That's what white people think.
Yeah, no. and modeling that, like we've had this podcast for over a year. Like I have been out loud deconstructing my own intertwinement with white supremacy, telling stories on the internet with large platforms, and like not one person has come for me for it. Not one. Like the worst I've gotten is, why you want to make everything about race? It's like some white people being upset, annoyed. But it's like,
yeah,
it's like, you know, I've watched my husband go through this of like learning to wear like feminist t-shirts and be outspoken, and you know, we're both doing it on our anti-whiteness journey, and it like thinking at first, like he used to be like, oh, I can't wait for somebody to come say it. And I was like, babe, nobody's gonna come up to you. Exactly. So like now he just drove a van that says the culting of America across red America while wearing a Foxtrot Delta Tango Donald Trump hat. And like he was like, yeah, I watched these like groups of angry white men like sit there and bristle, but they wouldn't dream of it, right? They wouldn't dream of approaching this 6'2", looks like a veteran dude who is clearly on the other side. And that's like something that white women, I really want us to understand.
So
like,
badly.
Even with blue hair, I didn't have one bit of backlash from that cop, and the others thought it was hilarious. Right? Like, whereas the trans veteran drew with chalk on a flagpole and got arrested.
Right.
You know? So like there has to be more of us. We have to have,
it'll feel good too. And even if
we have to start making the Brigade of Amy's and just the tip like a real thing.
Yeah. And like show face. And they're masked up, like masked up in a different way, but they like mask themselves. They're so afraid. You could just show up with your full face. You'll have so much. I just watched a video of a woman. She's like doing one of those on the sidewalk interviews, and the guy's like, oh, she's blonde. You know, you would mess up 1,000 years of a pure bloodline. You would give all of that up. And she just goes, what? All blood is pure. You're weird, and leaves. And it's a black guy going, yes, this is what we need. We don't need you to argue with all these men about, well, the blood and then get just, oh, that was weird. Make them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And just with you just being a good person and not the right, the correct, just have these natural emotions. And if they go, you're so weak and you're sensitive. Okay. Is that Are you uncomfortable with that? You know, there's so much there that you can work with as a white woman. That Karen energy, instead of condemning it, I'm like, we want to see it. We just want to see it not on us. We want to see it. We want you to be dangerous to the systems, not to the people.
I actually had this conversation with somebody that I think maybe found me through this podcast, but a woman of color, and came to the happy hour. And she said, you know, she doesn't like the language of non-practicing white person. She likes use your privilege, you know, figure out your privilege and use your privilege.
Right. It's a lot of distancing.
Yeah. It was kind of like, it can definitely give like, I don't see race versus like, I'm a white woman. I'm always going to be a white woman. And like in the same way that I should be aware, right? No matter how much I deconstruct, no matter how much I work in this field, I should be aware that I could become dangerous to you or to a Black man at any point in time. And that's a weapon I can use against the other people.
Yeah, you know, you could be pointing it. We could be behind you, like, you know, on the phone figuring out a plan, and you could be pointing it outward.
Right. You know, and this is my concept. I don't know if I told you, but my Brigade of Amy's idea is growing, right? So we're going to all be in bad blonde wigs, and we're all going to be pregnant. We're like all going to have beach balls.
I like
beach balls under there. Cause like, I can't get over this enough that like all of the men in power right now have been weaponizing the concept that America will not handle seeing dead white mothers, right? Will not. So you can't. How can we possibly put you in combat? How can we, like, they have literally, like, that was used against me as a weapon to disenfranchise me for my military career. That is information that I am now fully in possession of, right? Yep. Like, if I marched up to any government building with 400 white ladies and blonde wigs and pregnant bellies behind me, like,
do you know
what are they gonna do?
That's what I'm saying.
And that's why they arrest you all. Parents of anti-racism, like harnessing harnessing the fact that we are in the white women's bodies, no matter how much we deconstruct, which means we can still use that. Like, and this more and more I'm starting to talk about, like, this is the power of the deconstruction. When you think about your story as black and white, it is not nuanced, right? It is black or white. Like, but when you actually understand what your whiteness is, how that has been used as a weapon, how it has harmed you, you also understand that, like, well, being in a white body in America is always going to be powerful, which means that can be, you know, like, I describe my husband as he's the veteran that MAGA wet dreams about, but he's on our side. Right? And like, that's powerful.
We could use, listen, your husband may have to, you know, I remember one time saying we needed a white Herschel Walker on our side. Back a couple of years ago. You know, we just need a white man to say the things that I would say, you know, and we could just pop him up there.
There is a black professor on Instagram, and I will make sure I get his deets into the show notes of this, but he was just saying, he was like, let Gavin cook, right? He said, let Gavin cook, because right now he's pushing back. But also, white people on the left, please notice that only a white man could do this. You know, and he walks it all the way through. He's like, when Kamala got on that debate stage and literally wiped the floor with a white man, like, that was the end. Like, that hurt her more than it helped. Because in America, he says, we have a range of power, and it goes from white man to black woman. And until we fix that, he's like, America is right. But like, we had the two most qualified candidates we've ever had, a white woman and then a black woman, not be able to do this. But Gavin can do this. So like, let him cook. And this is kind of the thing I say about him. I'm like, yeah, let him do it. But notice that charisma that he has, like, Gavin can also be dangerous anytime he wants.
You have to zoom out.
Powerful white man. Right.
seeing the whole picture, seeing all these things involved with what's going on and like accepting those things, but also like, oh, what could I do that's similar to that, but even more so.
Yeah. But also having the conversations and understanding that like we're all on let Gavin cook, but we should also be dissecting why it wasn't okay for Kamala to be her, you know.
How are we here? You know, like what
right.
It never
why
made
is it
sense.
that only the white man can push back in this way against the white man? Like that is what we need to be deconstructing. And that note, I think we got to wrap up.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, everybody. If you are new, please like and subscribe and tell your best white girlfriend about our channel. Please
have them
go
hang out with us.
Like and subscribe Rebecca's Patreon. She won't even convince you to upgrade to paid. You'll just realize you need more. All of the notes and everything we referenced will be in the show notes. And like, in case it goes without saying, while you're doing this work, follow more Black creators, read more books by Black people, especially Black women, and also understand that there are so many perspectives that haven't been written down. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.